Today's lesson is Beyond Honey, Surprising Facts About Bees. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And we're going to continue talking about bees in today's program. Not wasps or hornets, but we're talking about bees specifically. And last time we introduced some interesting facts to you about bees. We talked about the fact that not all of them live in hives, and then we also talked about the fact that there are only 8 species of true honeybees, but they live in hives.
Right. Last time we talked about some bee facts that aren't commonly known. For instance, as Roger mentioned, how many species there are of bees and how much of the percentage of the bees, of the species that actually produce honey. But today we're going to look at some facts about bees that are somewhat more common, more known to everyday people.
Exactly. And of course, when we think of bees, of course, we think of honey, we think of hives, and of course, we think about getting stung by bees. So let's find out all about that. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson, and we'll be right back.
One bee fact that almost everyone knows is that bee stings hurt. Fortunately, not getting stung is as simple as staying calm and walking away. It may be easier said than done, but avoiding sudden movements is the best way to demonstrate that you aren't dangerous. Meanwhile, some people think that diving underwater is a good way to avoid stings, but they're wrong. Why? Because although bees won't dive into water, they're attracted to the carbon dioxide a person breathes out and can wait hours for someone to resurface.
大家好，第一部分我们来介绍片语 easier said than done。它的意思是谈何容易，或是说来容易做事难，也可以是知易行难的意思。例如 Quitting caffeine is easier said than done。要戒除咖啡因，谈何容易。又或者说 Losing weight is easier said than done because most people have real difficulty changing their lifestyles。减重说来容易，做事难，因为多数人很难改变他们的生活形态。接下来我们看到副词 underwater， 指的是在水面下的或是在水中的。举例来说 It took a while before Lucas lost his fear of swimming underwater。 花了好一段时间 Lucas 才不再害怕在水下游泳。再举一个例子 If you want to learn to swim, you need to know how to hold your breath underwater。 如果你想学习游泳，你需要知道如何在水下憋住呼吸。
Now, one bee fact that almost everyone knows is that bee stings hurt. A bee sting, of course, is a sting from a bee. So you don't get bitten by a bee, you get stung by a bee because a bee has a stinger at its tail end. And when the bee uses a stinger to sting a person, that can really hurt. I got stung once when a bee was trapped inside my pant leg.
Really?
And I felt something in my pant leg, so I kind of hit my pant leg and I hit the bee and it stung me and I realized there was a bee inside my pants. So yes, bee stings do hurt.
Yeah, I got stung by a bee once here in Taiwan. When I was riding my scooter, I suddenly felt this extreme pain in my leg. I had no idea how that pain came to be, but I realized later that it was a bee sting. I got stung by a bee, and I was surprised at how much it actually hurt. It was quite painful. So yes, indeed, most people know that bee stings hurt. Fortunately, not getting stung is as simple as staying calm and walking away. So I should say that the only time I remember getting stung by a bee was that one time in Taipei about, 10 years ago or so. But I've been around bees many times and did not get stung. So it's not always true that you'll get stung by a bee if there's a bee around you. All you need to do is stay calm and walk away. Don't make any sudden movements or don't get caught in someone's trouser leg.
Right, but that may be easier said than done. But avoiding sudden movements is the best way to demonstrate that you aren't dangerous. So before we said that it's actually easy to avoid getting stung by a bee, all you need to do is stay calm and walk away. But as my experience shows, it's not so easy. It's easier to say that. It's easier to give that advice to somebody than to actually do it. That's what the phrase easier said than done means. I could say, for instance, to my daughter, if you want to get better grades, all you need to do is study harder, pay closer attention to your teacher, and wake up earlier in the morning so that you're fresh and ready to go to your lessons. And she'll say, Mom, that's easier said than done. Why don't you try doing that every day?
Yeah, or one time I said I was going to climb to the top of Yushan or Jade Mountain in less than 3 hours. And of course, someone said, well, that's easier said than done. Obviously, you've never tried to climb that mountain before. It takes much longer than that. And yes, indeed, all you need to do is stay calm and walk away. But that's easier said than done because most people's reaction to a bee is to be really scared. Oh my goodness, there's a bee. Get away from me. I don't want to get stung. So indeed, it's easier said than done to stay calm when you see a bee. But still, you need to avoid those sudden movements. That's the best way to demonstrate that you aren't dangerous. You want to show that bee that you aren't a threat to them. And when you demonstrate something, you show something. You convey some information. You let someone know about something. For example, if you don't know how to use your vacuum cleaner, maybe the salesman will demonstrate it for you.
I could also say that my children's recent good behavior demonstrates that they have grown up and become more mature. So demonstrate can also mean the actions of somebody that shows that some other thing to be true. Now, meanwhile, some people think that diving underwater is a good way to avoid stings, but they're wrong. So there are some people who think that as long as they go under the surface of the water, below the surface of water, which is what underwater means, they can avoid stings. But that's not true.
And why is that? Well, that's because, although bees won't dive into water, they're attracted to the carbon dioxide a person breathes out and can wait hours for someone to resurface. So when you go under the water, of course, you are submerged in the water. And of course, you can't stay underwater for too long. You need to take a breath, so you'll need to come back out of the water. You will resurface. You'll stick your head above the water so you can breathe. And remember, when we breathe, when we take a breath, we take in oxygen and then we exhale carbon dioxide. And that's what the bees are waiting for. Carbon is an element. Its atomic number is 6, I believe. And it's a constituent of diamonds and graphite. In this particular case, the bees are waiting for that CO2 gas, so you're not safe if you go underwater.
Right. So if you go underwater, you still might be breathing out carbon dioxide, and the bees will just wait around because they're attracted to that gas, and they'll wait there for you to resurface so that they can sting you.
Exactly. And of course, no one likes to sting someone more than a bee does. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's learn more in the second part.
But bees more than make up for their stings by being essential to various ecosystems and food chains. Simply put, they're crucial to the survival of countless plants because they help distribute the plant's pollen, enabling the plants to reproduce.
第二部分我们看到片语 make up for 加名词或是动词 ing， 意思是弥补点点点或是补偿点点点。例如The basketball player makes up for his slow speed with his very accurate shooting. 这名篮球员以精准的投篮弥补他速度上的不足。或是 Jenny's boyfriend took her out to dinner to make up for being late the day before. 为了补偿前一天迟到 ，Jenny 的男友请她出去吃晚餐。再来，我们看到单字 essential， 它是形容词，指的是不可或缺的、基本的或是绝对必要的。例如Music is an essential part of Diane's life. 音乐是 Diane 生活中不可或缺的一部分。接下来我们看到动词 distribute， 指的是散发、分发或是分配，也可以是配销的意思。举例来说 A man was distributing free magazines in front of the MRT station. 有个男人在捷运站前分发免费杂志。再举一个例子 The company distributes its publications via the internet. 该公司透过网络发行他们的刊物。另外补充这个字的名词 distribution D-I-S-T-R-I-B-U-T-I-O-N distribution 意思是销售或是分布。例如 This company is in charge of the distribution of all sorts of products for the home. 该公司负责各种家庭产品的销售。又或者说 Make sure your tomato seeds have an even distribution throughout the garden. 你要确保你的番茄籽有平均分布在整座花园中。最后我们看到单字 pollen 它是名词，意思是花粉。例如 In the spring and summer, many people suffer from allergies because that's when the pollen count tends to be the highest. 春季和夏季是花粉含量最高的时期，很多人都会受过敏症状之苦。又或者说 Pollen usually spreads through other creatures or wind. 花粉通常透过其他生物或风来传播。
So in the last part, we learned that bees can cause harm when they sting people, but bees more than make up for their stings by being essential to various ecosystems and food chains. So we're saying that even though bees do some bad things like hurt people through their stings, they make up for that. They make up for their stings. So when you make up for a bad experience, such as a bee sting, you make that situation, that bad experience, better by doing something else. So I could say, for instance, I'm really sorry I broke your glasses by mistake. I'll buy you a new pair of glasses to make up for the accident. So I'm doing something to make the situation better, which resulted from the bad thing that I did.
Yeah, it's kind of to correct the situation, to compensate for something bad that you did. Remember, in our first program on this subject, we talked about make up as a term to describe the percentage or the part of something. Remember, we said drones make up 10% of the hive. But here the phrase make up has an important difference. We're using the preposition for to make up for something. And in that particular case, it means to compensate, to correct a situation. And yes, indeed, we might think bees are terrible, that they're evil because they sting us, but they make up for this terrible behavior by being essential or important to various ecosystems and food chains. Now, if something is essential, it's necessary, you've got to have it, and they are essential to various ecosystems and food chains. An ecosystem, of course, is something in nature in which various parts of that system depend on each other. It's a cycle, the cycle of life, you could say. So that's an ecosystem. And it's very similar to a food chain, whereas insects are at the bottom of the food chain, or they eat plants, and then you've got rats eating the insects, and you've got cats eating the rats, and then you've got bigger animals eating the cats. It just goes in a big circle.
Right. You can think of an ecosystem as all of the animals and plants of a particular area, and how these animals and plants and all of these living things relate to one another in their particular environment, and how they relate to the environment as well. Simply put, they're crucial to the survival of countless plants because they help distribute the plant's pollen, enabling the plants to reproduce. So one function that bees have is that they help plants survive. In this way, they are crucial. When something is crucial, it's very important because everything else depends on it. So I could say as an example that it's crucial that you call me as soon as you arrive. Because if you don't call me, then maybe the meeting won't go right and I won't know where you are if you're safe. So a lot of things depend on the fact that you must call me. That's why it's crucial that you call me in this particular example.
It's very, very important. And if you don't fulfill the needs of this particular situation, you could have big trouble. So, of course, the bees are crucial to the survival of countless plants. We need those plants because they help distribute the plants, or at least the bees help distribute the plants' pollen, enabling the plants to reproduce. We've all heard this, of course. We've heard about the story of the disappearance of bees in the world, and of course we're concerned about that because the bees spread that pollen around. It's kind of a powder from flowers, and they're spread from the male flowers to the female flowers so that the female flowers can produce fruit like apples and things like that. And so we need food as a result of this distribution of pollen. Pollen is different from nectar. Nectar is kind of like a sweet liquid from flowers. Pollen is the powdery stuff.
Right, and the verb distribute here means to spread or to spread over a large area, to share things with a lot of people in a group. So, for instance, when a new restaurant opens in a neighborhood, somebody might stand in the street and distribute flyers, which are little pieces of paper that advertise a business. In this case, it could be the restaurant, and the person distributes or hands out these flyers to let people know that there is a new restaurant in the neighborhood. And here, bees help distribute pollen, so it helps spread pollen from one flower to another.
And that, of course, enables those plants to reproduce. And if you reproduce, you create younger versions of yourself. Humans can, of course, reproduce. And plants reproduce as well. They produce fruit for us to consume, and those fruits have seeds in them, and then the cycle continues. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Here's the third part. Listen carefully.
In short, bees are amazing little creatures that make our lives better. Unfortunately, some species are also at risk of extinction due to human activities and other factors. So, if learning more about bees has encouraged you to help protect them, consider supporting organic farmers and honey producers. And if you see a hive, just leave it be.
In short, bees are amazing little creatures that make our lives better. Here, in short, is a phrase that we use when we want to summarize many ideas that we have already presented, and we want to present a shorter version that sums up everything we have just said. So in short can also be substituted with in sum, in summary, or in conclusion, since we are concluding our talk on bees. Now, the conclusion is that bees are amazing because they improve our lives. They make our lives better.
And they are pretty cute, especially the ones who are yellow and black. And they are very cute indeed. And unfortunately, some species are also at risk of extinction due to human activities and other factors. Now, remember earlier in this lesson, we talked about the word extinct. That's the condition of when a species disappears from the face of the earth. Extinction is the noun form here. And if you're at risk of extinction, all of your brothers and sisters may die out very soon, and there will be no more of your species in the world. And we are talking about all sorts of different species at risk of extinction. They are in danger of going extinct because of human activities and because of other factors, maybe because of climate change or volcanic eruptions or whatever.
Right. So when we talk about human activities, we're referring to things like growing cities that take up natural land. So maybe bees don't have any place to go anymore. They can't find flowers. Or perhaps we use pesticides, and these pesticides that are sprayed on flowers affect the bees' health, so they can no longer reproduce. So a lot of things that we do, that humans do in order to go about our daily lives, do affect bees, and we may not notice it. And it's important to notice it. So if learning more about bees has encouraged you to help protect them, consider supporting organic farmers and honey producers.
Right. There is a theory that artificial fertilizers and things like that can actually harm bees. So consider supporting organic farmers. And you can also support honey producers by maybe buying a jar of honey from time to time. It does taste good on toast. And if you see a hive, just leave it be. Leave it be. Just leave it alone. Just like the Beatles song, Let It Be, Let It Be. Of course, that song was performed by the Beatles. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Here comes Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher who actually enjoys honey.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分有提到，蜜蜂对无数植物的存活至关重要，因为它们帮助传播植物的花粉，让植物得以繁殖。文中用到 distribute 这个动词，它具有散发或是分发、分配的意思。我们来学习它的字首字根。首先看到 tribute 作为单字，它有贡品、贡献、致敬或是敬意等等的意思。那么 tribute 作为字根，它则有给予、分配的意思。好，我们看到在 distribute 这个字当中，它的字首 dis 有个别、分开的意思。字根 tribute 表示给予、分配。那当我们个别分配物品，一个一个分开给，那就不难联想到 distribute 它有这种分配啊、分发的意思。顺便补充两个有相同字根的单字，第一个是 contribute， 它的字首 con 表示一起，那么 tribute 表示给予、贡献。从字面意思来看，就是一起贡献、一起给予嘛。那这样应该很容易联想到 contribute 它有捐献、做出贡献或是为什么来贡献的意思。好，第二个补充的是 retribution。retribution， 那它的字首 re 表示往回。好 tribut 则是来自 tribute， 表示分配给予。那么 ion 是名词字尾，我们就可以用那种予以回报、给予相对应的回报、惩处去联想到 retribution， 它有报应或是严惩的意思。再来看到课文第三段有一句写到，遗憾的是，有些物种也因为人类活动和其他因素正面临灭绝的危险。文中是用 due to human activities and other factors 来表达因为人类活动和其他因素。那这边要介绍片语介系词 due to， 它表示因为、由于怎么样怎么样，意思就跟 because of或者是 owing to 差不多，后面常常会接名词或动名词来说明原因。可是这边要补充几个重点咯。第一个是 due to 和 owing to 是比较正式的用法，比较常用在正式的公告里面，可能像政府宣布的消息，或是航空公司宣布因为某些缘故而取消班机之类的。那 because of 在口语当中是比较常用的。第二个补充的重点是due to 和 because of 可以接在 be 动词之后当补语来用， owing to 则不行。举例来说， The delay was due to heavy fog， 延误是因为起浓雾了。好，那么第三个补充重点是，如果要在 due to 后面接子句，则必须先加上同位语 the fact， 把它写作 due to the fact that 主词加动词，可是这时候其实它就跟 because 接子句意思是差不多的。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天单字吧。
Demonstrate. George demonstrated his strong problem-solving abilities by completing the puzzle quite quickly. Underwater. She dove underwater to explore the wonderful world in the clear blue sea. Carbon is a chemical element that is found in all living creatures. Essential. Regular exercise is essential for maintaining good health. Ecosystem. Planting native trees can help repair the local ecosystem. Crucial. In order to achieve academic success, it's crucial that you spend sufficient time studying. Distribute. Trains and trucks will be used to distribute the product throughout the nation.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today, and the question is, which bee fact discussed in the article did you find most surprising and why?
Well, as I mentioned before, I was most surprised by the fact that there are 16,000 bee species and that so few species actually live in hives. So, seeing as there are so many bee species, I wonder what these species actually look like. Do they resemble one another? Or when you look at them under a microscope, you can actually see big differences between one species and another?
Well, learning that there are so few species of honey-producing bees out there, I was very surprised by the fact that there are so few bee species that actually produce honey.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.